Hello and welcome to this week's IGTV, how to deal with your explosive teen. It doesn't matter what you do, they are flying off the handle, yelling, physically violent, and they just won't seem to calm down. It doesn't matter what you try. You've tried supporting them, you've tried shutting them down, you've tried punishing, nothing is working. And it's getting to where you are afraid to go out with them because the public consequences or even the familial consequences of having an explosive teenager is shaming and creating wild disconnection and then isolation because you feel completely powerless and at a loss of how to move forward. I want you to know you're not alone in this. I want you to know you did not break your teen and you're not a bad parent. This is more normal than you think. And I'm going to walk you through why it's happening today and exact tools to help your teen to learn to regulate. And I'll explain what that is. My name is Allie Payne. I'm a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach. I have been working with parents of teens, specifically tween teens between ages sort of 12 to 21, which is when the adolescent brain is really taking hold. Actually for 16 years next month. 16 years in 3 weeks. So 15 years I've been doing this. I was a very troubled teen. I was very highly reactive. I'm very emotionally centered. And so I was loud and reactive and brash. So I'm going to tell you from my experience as well. I have raised 2 teens. They are now 19 and 21. And I have spent approximately 20 years in therapy, 10 years in personal development, specifically over 4,000 hours working on human dynamic interpersonal skills and communication. And I'm also a certified life coach and certified relationship systems coach, those two taking 3 years of in-person time, rigorous training to meet standards to provide help and support for parents of teens. So let me walk you through a little bit of this. Here is why this is happening. Now, if you've watched some of my videos, just be patient. I'm going to go through this quickly because this is fundamental. I need you to understand this. This can be similar in a child's brain, but it is somewhat different in a teen brain, okay? So this is the Dr. Daniel Siegel hand model of the brain. This is a regulated adult brain, a regulated adult brain. I can't be clear enough about that. This here in the front, this is your prefrontal cortex and your frontal lobes. They are your filter. They're your filter, okay? Inside here, see where my thumb is? That is the amygdala. It's also the hippocampus, but the amygdala is the emotion center of the brain, okay? Nicely tucked inside, safely there. This brain has emotions, has lots of emotions. This brain also has some regulation and a filter to have a healthy experience of life for the most part. That's a generalization, okay? Now, a teen brain is like this. Why? Because the adolescent brain is going through the second and final growth phase of the human lifetime. It is similar to a toddler brain. Is that making sense for you on the whole explosivity part? The teen brain is similar to the toddler brain, okay? Because this amygdala, see the emotion center here? It is uncovered. It is not protected. And the frontal lobes and the prefrontal cortex are not fully formed physically because they actually are growing. The brain is densifying to be capable of more complexity, far more complexity in emotions, thoughts, feelings, etc. And processing capability, okay? So it's putting in all new hardware and it's developing new software at the same time. So what that leaves you is a very raw and unprotected emotion center without an effective filter, okay? Now this is an adult brain. This is kind of the teen brain. They're always in a state of fight or flight. They're emotionally reactive. They're very defensive, pissy, frustrated, angry, etc. And this is an unregulated brain. So Dr. Daniel Siegel calls this when you flipped your lid. Like once you flipped your lid, when you are, your intellectual brain is actually offline. your primal emotional brain is running the show. And when you're dealing with explosions, this is kind of what's happening, is the emotional brain, which is raw, it doesn't have filters, it goes directly to fight or flight, life-threatening situations, even if that's not the actual reality. Okay, it lacks some perception as well. Okay, so I need you to understand that, to understand your explosive teen. Okay, so the teen brain, as I said, is normally emotionally reactive. That's not helpful, right? Certain neurodiversities like ADHD, ODD, and certain other conditions, physiological conditions, can increase impulsivity. The teen brain lacks emotional regulation and impulse control. Okay, so those are your two, those are the brakes, or excuse me, those are the gas pedal. Those are the gas pedal. The intellectual brain is the brakes, but the intellectual brain is not fully formed. Okay, so I need you to let go of the perception, because this will not help you. In fact, this will make this worse. I need you to let go of the perception that your teenager is doing this to piss you off. They're doing this to try and control you. They're doing this for any form of intentional, ill-mannered reason that is premeditated. I need you to move off of that, please. It will make this worse. Okay? Trust me when I say, if your teenager didn't have to go through this, they would opt for that too, because this brain renovation is very, very concerning. It is very uncomfortable. It is scary, and nobody tells them that it was going to happen. So I need you to stop taking this so personally. Number two, I need you just drop the mindset that they're doing this to try and get their way. I need you to let that go. And you can think I am full of crap and talking out my ass. That is fine. I dare you to try it for 7 days. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Some cray-cray lady on the internet, 7 days. I dare you. Your teenager is not doing this to try and manipulate you to get their way. That mindset is increasing the conflict. It is increasing their explosivity, their emotional reactivity. So let's, for just a moment, just park that, okay? All right. Because the teenage brain is in the state that it is in, it's almost always in a state of fear. Okay, because it's not fully regulated like this, it's kind of like this. It's like a turtle with a half-formed shell. So everything feels prickly and scary. Like everything. Their primal brain is telling them that almost everything could be dangerous. Ah, that's gonna hurt. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Everything feels sharp and scary. Can you imagine living in a world where everything felt sharp and scary? So that is not helping the emotional reactivity. Now, one of the common reactions, if you were parented like me, is that in our generation of childhood, okay, uncomfortable emotions, unpleasant emotions like anger, frustration, sadness, melancholy even, anything that was uncomfortable was simply not allowed. So what your parents may have done, because they love you and were doing the best they could, was do everything possible to suppress that. You stop it, and you stop that right now. In fact, those feelings were deemed as disrespectful. Okay, so that's another thing I want you to do, is I would like you to come on over to the side where all emotions are human. They're human. They don't need another label. No other label necessary. All emotions are human. But if you were raised in a home where the difficult or challenging emotions were intended to be shut down and turned off immediately, then your parenting is likely going to reflect some of that with your teenager. That the more explosive they get, the more you want to shut that down. Because you also deem it as uncomfortable or disrespectful, which it certainly can be. Embarrassing. I was told that all the time. I was told I was embarrassing because I was highly reactive. Okay, so I need you to look at this. Isn't just you. Like if you're like, ooh, hang up on this lady, she's saying it's all my fault. No, I actually don't operate in the realm of fault and blame because well, first of all, blame is toxic. So how is that possibly going to help? Second of all, I know darn well you're a caring, courageous parent who is doing your absolute best, given what you know, to help your teen. What I also know statistically is that our generation of parents was not taught a lot of this as children because our parents were not equipped with this. That's not about fault or blame. That is generationally studied. So let's move off of fault or blame because I'm certainly not blaming you. So if you're blaming you, I give yourself permission to just be taking in new information. That's it, okay? So the more that you attempt to suppress your highly reactive child, the more highly reactivity you will get. It's like trying to hold the lid on a boiling pot. Have you ever tried that? Trying to hold the lid on a boiling pot? You're going to get burned. You're going to get burned. And the pot will just keep boiling over and it just makes a giant mess, right? And the mess becomes bigger and bigger. Okay. So these are mindsets and things that and insights I need you to understand first to even deal with your teen. Now, the next thing that that parents often say to me is, but they're so disrespectful. I mean, so what? I'm just supposed to tolerate this? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying be without boundaries. I'm not saying write welcome across the top of your forehead. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is your teenager needs support. They need you. They can't do this alone. Oh, I can't say that enough. If you think your teenager is going to grow out of this phase on their own because somehow they're just going to wake up miraculously and know how to drive this new brain that they've been given, oh, that's not going to work. It was a good try, but that's not going to work. Okay? So just being like, well, figure it out. You go in your room, don't be so disrespectful, and you figure this out, but don't try that again with me. This isn't going to work. You obviously have some behavioral issues. Your teenager's brain is new, and they've been given the hardware without all the software yet, nor were they given the manual. And neither were you. Even more fun. So emotional regulation, which lowers explosivity, requires you to mentor and teach them this. And I understand if you were like me, you probably weren't taught this either. So you can do it together. Okay? So yes, this might be disrespectful. I want to address that. You are allowed to have boundaries around this, but there is a difference between boundaries and trying to shut down the behavior, like just deny or suppress it. Okay? That is, the denying or suppressing is going to create more of a boiling pot. So that might look like, oh, don't you speak to me like that, young lady. You shut your mouth right now. You don't talk to your parents like that. You go to your room and don't come out until you can speak nicely or something like that. That's what it sounded like for me. Or when we were out and I was emotionally reactive because I was highly reactive and my parents would simply tell me, oh my gosh, you're so embarrassing. Sit down. Now people are staring at us. You're so embarrassed. Like that's another thing that I was told. So, trying to suppress this simply because you don't know how to deal with it, which is totally okay, or because it's uncomfortable, that won't work. Trying to punish this, which is a parenting style that you and I were raised in, if you're anything like me, and you'd be like, I don't want to be like you, that's okay too. Trying to punish your teenager to stop being so emotionally reactive assumes, again, this circles back to one of the very first comments I made when I started this live 19 minutes ago, was that punishing your teen for being reactive, which means punitive action, okay? It is like taking their phone, taking their tech, grounding them, using derogatory or hurtful comments like "you're embarrassing," telling them they're irresponsible, immature, all of those things, assumes that they're doing this intentionally to manipulate you, get your way, get their way, whatever it is, which is untrue. It's simply untrue. And punishing high reactivity is just another way of suppressing it. But you can come at suppressing it and feel like you're being more passive, or if you struggle with emotional reactivity and you come out and you need to feel control or power over them, that might look like punishing because they're being disrespectful. I completely acknowledge that may be part of this equation for you. And so you want to get on top of this so it becomes a power pissing match. So you're trying to shut it down through punitive action will just continue to get you more. It'll get you more and more of it, okay? So here's another reason. So those are mindsets I need you to have. I'm asking you to try out. Just try them out for like 7 days, okay? Here's what happens as a teen. I'm going to tell you from my own experience, okay? Now, I was raised in an environment that my parents loved me. I cannot be clear enough about that. They came from significant trauma, and like every other parent of the generation, we're not educated about psychology, relationship skills, and parenting because we didn't know what we knew then. Parenting was based on a military industrialized model, aka control. It was not based on the emotional basis of the relationship, which, by the way, fundamentally is the foundation of all behavior, emotions. So if you were taught to purely look at the behavior and not have the capacity to be curious about or dig into the mess of the emotion that is driving the behavior, that also will create more explosivity. It will not work. The behavior is not the issue. That's the symptom. It's what you're seeing. That's the top of the iceberg, like the 20 to 30% that's above the water. The emotions underneath are where the explosivity, the fuel lives. So you can hold the lid on the pot or you can just turn down the burner. All of my programs teach you the relationship nuances, the psychology, and the parenting skills that we were not taught to turn down the burner. So you don't need to burn your hand trying to hold the lid on the pot. That's what all of my programs do. My next one coming up is the Empowered Parent Mastermind. It's an 8-week in-depth program that starts on September 26th that happens to be on early bird savings only for the next 4 days. You can get there via the link in my bio. Okay, so the reactivity underneath. What is happening? Reactivity, now you can have a child who has an emotional basis. They're just more emotionally run. Module 2 in the Empowered Parent Mastermind talks specifically about personality styles and love languages. And this will help you to understand we have personality styles that are more intellectually based. Yes, they still have feelings. And then we have personality styles that are emotionally based. And yes, they have intellect. Okay, so if you are an opposing style to your teenager, that alone can build reactivity. So that's why I cover this in depth in module 2. The reactivity for me, because I was raised in a home where my parents did not know how to allow or encourage some of my emotional expression. It was compliance, control, and appropriateness at all cost. That was kind of the parenting of the era too. For me, I felt so unheard and unseen in my emotional experience as a human. So that's one. Second of all, being on the receiving end of some significant emotional abuse, that I was a boiling pot. I was a boiling pot. Now, aside from the emotional abuse, because I'm not saying that you do any of that, okay? I did not feel seen and heard. And the more I was required to suppress those feelings or continued punitive action, punishment, derogatory, painful things to happen to me as if that was going to right my behavior, it made it worse. I felt so angry inside. Now, anger is a covering emotion. Remember, anger is what boils up often when the foundational emotions underneath have not been given airtime or attention to be validated and released. So the longer you try and put the lid on the pot, the more you go from just having some messy emotions that might still be uncomfortable for you and your teenager to actually building anger that may not have been there to begin with. I'm going to tell you this honestly. I hated my parents. I hated them. I hated them for the way I was treated, which I knew was wrong, but I no matter what I said, no matter what I did, it wouldn't stop. I felt unloved. I felt unwelcome in my home. I did not feel like I belonged. This is also what all of my programs teach, is the fundamental essence, the 3 scientific proven elements that build influence and connection with your teenager long term, which creates lasting behavior change. Emotional safety, so your teenager can bring you messy emotions. And it doesn't have to be disrespectful or explosive or angry or dangerous. Meaningful connection, so that your teenager can share views and beliefs that they are forming that may oppose some of yours and not feel as though their relationship with you is at risk or their love will be removed. And true belonging, that your teenager knows that who they are is welcome and celebrated even when it is different from you, and you are delight in them and excited to see who they become, even if it is not a path you have ever walked. These are the 3 foundations, the 3 pillars of the Empowered Parent Mastermind that starts on September 26th. Now, that emotional mess, okay? If your teenager is reactive, I am telling you, there's probably anger under there. They're core emotions that felt in some way unheard, unseen, or validated have become a version of angry. Now, angry also looks like the emotional brain going from kind of just hanging on to a thread and just being emotional in the soup that is emotion, human emotion, to now uncontrollable. So that's when it's flipped its lid, and it's like talking to a drunk. I tell parents this of all ages. Once anyone has flipped their lid, it's like talking to a drunk. You cannot reason. The intellectual brain is offline. So attempting to intellectually connect to your teenager, good luck. Good luck on that. Trying to reason with your teenager, good luck on that too. Because their intellectual brain is offline. The teenage brain is similar to the toddler brain in this way. When a 2-year-old is having a temper tantrum, their intellectual brain, which as a toddler is even less, is offline. So why are you trying to intellectually connect with someone whose intellectual brain is offline? Do you see the insanity in that? Okay, so what I need you to do is understand, and I do this in my free 10-day listening challenge. This is what my free 10-day listening challenge helps you baby step your way into, is developing an emotionally safe space where your teenager feels they can bring their mess, even as a reactive child, and they can feel seen, heard, and validated in those feelings so they don't need to deny, abandon, or suppress them. So you go, well, I'm sorry, my teenager gets dangerous when they are emotionally reactive, so you're telling me I'm supposed to invite that. I obviously, Allie, that's not going to work. You don't live in my house. Okay, I get it. That's fair. That's totally fair. I am not saying, again, to not have boundaries. I'm saying that the skill of being able to validate and empathize and be with their mess without you, this is the key, without you having to get in the mess with them. Because you see, what happens for us as adults is when our teenager's brain begins to unregulate, it's dysregulating, it triggers a state of fight or flight in our own brains. And the only position that we go to is defense. And when that doesn't work, we go to offense. Does that sound familiar? You start with defense because you go instantly to fight or flight when someone's coming at you. And when that doesn't work, you go to offense. And now we have a power pissing match again. It does nothing. It literally will solve nothing. It will create greater levels of conflict, disconnection, disrespect, and it will erode the relationship that you have with your team. So I'm not going to go into the details of how to validate and empathize because I do that in my free 10-day listening challenge. It's via the link in my bio under free downloads. It's on my website under free downloads. There is the skill of empathy and validation means what they are feeling is not about you. You see, there is an emotional boundary here because I know where I start and I end and they begin. They are allowed to have the big, messy emotions that are all human. I'm going to say it again. They're all human. And I am not required to get in the soup with them. And perhaps more importantly, I am not responsible for their discomfort. And therefore, I don't need to fix it. Now, this is a difficult thing if you are Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z parent, because our generation is currently the largest generation of codependent and emotionally insecure people walking the planet. Why? Because we were raised in a generation where we were told that our behavior was directly responsible for our parents' discomfort. And it might have sounded like this. Your father is going to be so upset with you when he comes home. Don't you dare do that. Or, oh, your mother is going to be so disappointed with you. I can't even. Do you see the shame and how you were taught that your behavior directly correlated to your parents' feelings? And if they were feeling anything other than happiness, joy, fulfillment, or contentment, you must have done something wrong. Okay, so that's a lie. That's a toxic lie. It's called codependence. Our parents did not know differently. They were not trying to F us up. That's just what happened. Okay? So now, as parents, when our teenager is dysregulated, is in uncomfortable feelings, it's triggering that part of your brain that says, oh, this is your fault. This is your fault. Dance fast. Do something quickly so that you can help and fix them because this is your fault. That's not true, but that's what your brain is telling you. So as your teenager comes to you in an emotional, messy storm that is all human, you get triggered into thinking you need to immediately end the discomfort, which might look like the things I've talked about before, suppressing, put the lid on the pot, punishing, to control it, shut it down. None of those things work. But the third thing that ends up happening for you as a parent is you go into fix-it mode. You go into fix-it mode because your brain is so uncomfortable with their level of discomfort and you have been taught that's your fault. It is your fault they are uncomfortable. So you better do whatever it takes right effing now to fix them so that they don't have to be this uncomfortable. That will make this worse. Because their emotions are not for fixing. Their emotions are for feeling. I'm going to say that one more time. Their emotions, your teenager's emotions, are not for fixing. They are for feeling. Feeling is what makes our species different than any other. It is the vast emotional expression that we have, that an experience we have that makes us human. Expecting our teenagers to be raised in a way where they only experience pleasant or easy emotions is raising half humans. And we've already tried that for the last few generations. And I'm just going to say it's not working. So let's not do it to the next generation. Okay? So when you learn to empathize and validate your teenager and allow them to be in their mess without needing to fix it, take responsibility for it, deny it, or suppress it, which is what I teach you in the Empowered Parent Mastermind. They don't need to know what they're feeling, but that is the next step. That's the next step. They don't need to know what they're feeling. They can just be feeling it. Empathizing and validating just means saying, wow, this feels really hard for you. This seems like you've got a lot going on right now. I'm here with you. I'm here with you. All of your feelings are safe here. Why would they have to know what they're feeling? Besides, the teenage brain doesn't know what they're feeling, and here's why. Because they are growing the physical capacity, the hardware to have far more complex, in-depth feelings. By the way, they're going from approximately 16 as a child to 88 as an adult. But they don't have the software yet to effectively name and articulate or express all of those emotions. And they don't just wake up one morning having that software installation happening like your computer does. That is parenting. But when we were never taught this, how are we supposed to do it? So just like our teen, the joke's on them because their teen brain is being massively renovated and no one told them this was going to happen, which makes it only harder. The joke's on us because we were never taught these skills either. So we're both doing the best we can, and we weren't given a manual. So being able to be around their emotional mess without taking ownership, responsibility for it or needing to fix it will help them be less reactive. Because you're not making them wrong in their emotional mess, which is number one key, emotional safety, that all of my programs address. And psychologically, every research, you can have a look at it. It is the foundation for building long-standing healthy relationships and influence. Emotional safety is required for influence, that thing you want with your teen. So the next step is helping them name their emotions, which, do you know that Dr. Brené Brown's recent research in her book, Atlas of the Heart, shows that the average adult can only clearly articulate and express 3 to 5 of the 88 studied emotions, 3 to 5. So if adults can only clearly articulate and express 3 to 5, how are our teenagers supposed to do this? We've been given a short end of the stick, and no one is to blame. It is a cultural revolution that we as parents are learning, wow, there's more to this than what we were taught. Okay, so that just is. Let's saddle up and let's do this. So I use the feeling wheel. It's under free downloads in the link in my bio, free downloads. The feeling wheel by Dr. Gloria Wilcox. It has 76 different emotions on it, and regularly discussing, not well in a dysregulated state. No, that's trying to intellectualize with an emotional brain. Good luck to you. In regulated states, I say use it at dinner time. I have a video about how to, and if you go to the link in my bio under free downloads to the feeling wheel, you'll get the video, the 2 videos of how to use the feeling wheel and why it's so important, is to use it at dinner times and in conversation when their brain is regulated to begin to help them develop the skill. Not just they have the capacity for these complex emotions, but they don't have the skill to begin to articulate them, to begin to name these feelings, which is, by the way, why Dr. Brené Brown wrote Atlas of the Heart. If you register in my the Empowered Parent Mastermind, which is available at Early Bird Savings only for the next 4 days. This is one of the tools that I recommend that you get is Atlas of the Heart with Dr. Brené Brown. She wrote it for the purpose of families to be able to sit around the dinner table and better name and articulate and understand their feelings, knowing that we are currently in a global generation in the most emotional pain and disconnection we have ever been in history, because we don't know how to talk about emotion. And we don't know how to name and articulate. And her research also shows that when the brain does not know how to name or effectively articulate our emotion, we also cannot effectively process, heal, or release that emotion. And then we wonder why we have such reactive teens. Okay? So, a highly explosive reactive teen can be for a number of reasons. It can be personality style. It can be that they do not feel fully heard, seen, and validated in their emotional mess. And it is an emotional mess when they are a teen. Okay? It may be that they don't feel a sense of emotional safety to even express those with you. So they continue to suppress them because they don't know any other way. Their brain, you have the fully formed brain. They don't. That's why I'm talking to you. Okay? So even though you and I may not have been taught this, we can learn it because we have the developed brain to better support our teen. So your teen may also be because when they're highly reactive and emotionally centered, though that boiling stew of messy emotion in there, when it is not fully given the space and the safety and to be seen, heard, and validated, it will quickly boil to anger. So now your emotionally reactive teen is even more emotionally reactive and may even become violent or physically destructive. There could be some neurodiversity that's involved in that. Okay, so this is not about fault or blame. I'm purely trying to empower and equip you. Okay, so where was I going with that? Right. So naming emotions, that's the next step, is naming and talking about emotions in regulated states so that when your teenager is dysregulated, they have more words that they can use. By the way, that takes practice, and guess who's going to model it? You are, woo, woo, it's your turn. So this is about how do you model emotional reactivity? Because your teenager is learning from you. This again is not about fault or blame. This just is. You're just like you learned from your parents, and they are not bad people, okay? Your teenager is learning from you. So when you are in an emotionally reactive state, you're super frustrated or you're pissed off, you're angry, you're annoyed, whatever those feelings are, what do you do with that? Do you deny and suppress it? Do you just shut it down? Or do you get really explosive with it and take it out on them or take it out on something? Or are you modeling emotional reactivity with words by saying, owning your feelings? I'm feeling so frustrated right now. XYZ happened, and now XYZ, ABC happened, and this is going to cost me, or now I'm late, or whatever. I'm so frustrated. It is so hard to be with these feelings. I'm feeling annoyed. I'm frustrated. This is not what I wanted to happen, and I just need to go for a walk for 5 minutes to cool down. Do you model that with your teen? Like, it's okay to have emotions, but do you model I language in that moment? That was I language. I was owning my experience. I named my experience, frustrated, annoyed, disappointed. I never ever said you. I didn't project it on anybody or expect anyone else to do, behave, say anything differently to fix or rescue me. I took responsibility for my feelings, and then most importantly, I articulated what I was going to do about the emotion and my dysregulation as a coping strategy. I said, I'm going to go for a walk for 5 minutes. I just need to cool down. That's it. I didn't expect anybody else to do anything for me or with me or make it anybody's fault. That's it. So my teenager begins to see, oh, okay, so It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry, and it's okay to say it and have feeling behind it. Okay. And then going for a walk may not be the strategy that best suits my teen. That's fine. I also have strategies. It's on my YouTube channel. If you message me here on Instagram, or if you're on YouTube, hit the follow, hit subscribe. I can send it to you. It's 4 tips for lowering anxiety. And just like an asthma inhaler, doing this with your teen when they are dysregulated is ridiculous. It will not work. Using your emergency inhaler for asthma attacks doesn't make you have less asthma attacks. You got to use the daily one that seems like it's not doing anything, because that, on the daily basis, when things seem fine, is what actually has you have less asthma attacks. So these strategies I'm telling you about are not for use when their teen is dysregulated. They are for use right here, right now, to be modeled by you for them on the daily. And I'm sorry if this feels like another thing on your plate, because you are already at your wit's end and you are exhausted. You are scared about your teenager's future because their anger is becoming so explosive, it's getting out of control. They're damaging your home. It is costing you money, and you don't know what else to do. I see you. And I understand that asking you to do one more thing can feel like a punch in the face. And I'm sorry about that. And things may feel harder before they get better. I will never look at you and tell you, oh, it's just so easy. No. But I will tell you that these simple things I'm talking about, used consistently, will quickly begin to lower your teenager's emotional state, to bring them into to a regulated state, a de-escalated regulated state, so that you may still have emotional explosivity, but you're going to have less of it, and the level of explosivity will become lower. I desperately wanted to be seen and heard. I needed space. I didn't want my parents to engage with me necessarily. I just wanted them to know that I just wanted to feel seen and heard. I was so angry inside, so angry. I did not destroy things or hurt anyone, but I'll tell you, I wanted to. If you wanted to, I wanted to. And so what ends up happening with that, by the way, I speak to this from personal experience, is you grow up with a suppressed rage. It's awesome. Rage is an experience of suppressed anger over a long period of time that comes from feeling hopeless or powerless over a long period of time. Hopeless, powerless, and unheard. Having had no voice. You don't need a ragey teenager. Teenagers are a struggle as it is. Okay? So those are the key tools that, so I guess the other thing I would say is physicality, is if your teenager is a physical teen, not all teenagers are physical. If your teenager is physical, then use physical activity, but go make it good. Like, I mean, axe throwing, like, I mean, for real, axe throwing, get a punching bag for them, get, something that is really physical, but safe. Physical and safe, okay? We used to tell our kids when they were little, they could punch couch pillows, or they could throw pillows on the ground. So we made it safe for them to be physical that respected the environment. They could always punch couch pillows, they could throw pillows on the ground, or they could go to their rooms and they could punch their bed pillows as hard as they wanted, scream as loud as they wanted. Because that let them, it acknowledged the escalation, and it let it come down so that their brain came back online, and then we could talk about and start to name that emotion. And even if your teenager doesn't know what the emotion is, don't press them to name it, okay? What matters more is helping them know that they're safe, because they feel unsafe. What you're seeing in a dysregulated brain that's offline is they are not only having a heightened level of emotion, they feel unsafe in that emotion. So your, sorry, I always got an itchy nose when I live. Your job is to help them be regulated. So your explosive teen may still be explosive. Now I'm going to tell you this. In the Empowered Parent Mastermind, my signature 8-week program, which starts on September 26th and is currently available at Early Bird Savings, I have worked with multiple parents who are dealing with significant neurodiversity or anger outbursts. Like, I mean, holes in walls, damage done to the home, okay? And I can tell you, and their case studies are actually on the website, on my website. Okay, if you go to the link in my bio, it'll say the Empowered Parent Mastermind right there. The case studies are on there. The emotional reactivity of their teen has dramatically decreased. They are not destroying property anymore. Are they still reactive? Yes. They are less reactive, less often. Would that be worth it to you? Would that be worth it to you? To not live in fear for your own safety, to not be so afraid of their future that they are a giant hot mess and that you can't, like, this is it, I guess this is as good as it gets, because that's not true. That you don't have to feel so alone and isolated because you're constantly being shamed that you're the family that no one will invite because your teenager is so reactive. None of that is the way that it has to be, even if that is the way that it has been. And here I will tell you one last thing, that I was on a call with TikTok Live with somebody yesterday, and it broke my heart. She said, it's just that child. It's not me, it's just that child. I have a good relationship with my other two. It's just that one. They're just broken. I'm done. It is that mentality that is called emotional abandonment. Because I know you care so much about your teenager that what you first did, this in your first rodeo with this, you went to bat for that teen. You blamed yourself. You tried everything you could until you got to the very end of that and things hadn't changed. And so because you had already beat yourself up and blamed yourself until the end of time, the only thing left was to blame them. And so when you blame them, and that's still not working using punishment or punitive action, and it's still not changing, the third option is to come to the conclusion that they're just a bad apple. They're just broken. And then you start to build evidence that says, see, because I'm a good parent, because I have a relationship with my other two kids. So it's not me. It's just them. They're broken. And then you start to mount evidence about how they treat other people and how your other children treat other people and how your other relationships are good. So it really is just them. I'm going to tell you for sure right now, I completely empathize with that position. Because I know you only got there from literally doing every single thing that you know you could. I know that's the only reason that you got there. And I'm also going to tell you this. That position is what keeps you stuck. Because that position is a conveniently safe island that keeps you from having to look any further, to learn more, to find a different mindset, to learn scientifically backed and proven tools, strategies, and effective solutions that I teach in my programs to change the situation. That safe island is what keeps you, keeps your ego. Your ego is what wants to keep you safe. And I can also tell you this, I was that child. I was the child that was just labeled problem. Because there was no other information that my parents needed to meet me where I was at, to find me in my mess, because I was in there. And so instead, being labeled problem led to emotional abandonment, extreme shaming, guilt, which led me to drive further and harder to levels of perfection to try and feel loved and get some form of approval. Straight A's and an award-winning athlete, which was still not enough. until I couldn't be perfect anymore. I started drinking heavily at 13. I started skipping school at 15. And the wheels fell off. At 17, I went from straight A's to F's and failing out and a suicide attempt. And my relationship with my parents is still, we're acquaintances. I have done 20 years of therapy and healing. I've done 10 years of personal development, studying in depth human dynamic communication skills to understand relationships, as well as my life coach training and relationship systems coach training to overcome that time. I don't believe that being a parent needs to be so hard. And I don't think that being a teenager needs to be so hard either. So if this is sounding like something that might give you hope, I guarantee this program. It has a 60-day money back guarantee. No questions asked. So there's no risk. The only risk for you is staying on an island that says they're broken. I've done everything I can. That's it. The only risk for you is keeping doing what you're already doing, even if you know it's not working. And I know inside you know that the relationship with your teenager is possible, even if you don't currently know how. You are smart, you're intelligent, and I believe in you, which is why I provide a guarantee on this program, because I believe in it that much. The link is in my bio via Instagram. I'll post it here on YouTube. It starts September 27th, and the early bird savings are available now, but only for the next 4 days. If you have any questions, please message me on Instagram at Ali Payne. I'm happy to answer your questions. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here, and I sincerely do believe in you. I absolutely believe in you, and you are welcome. Here, you are welcome in my programs, and I promise you it will be worth your time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.